Hello everyone, I am Sujata Singh, Faculty of Chemistry. I welcome you all to the official YouTube channel of SRN International School. In this video, we are going to discuss the topic Chemistry in Everyday Life for Grade 12. Chemistry has influenced our lives so much that we do not even realize that we come across chemicals at every moment, and that we ourselves are beautiful chemical creations and all our activities are controlled by chemicals. Here we shall learn the application of chemistry in three important and interesting areas, namely medicine, food products, and cleansing agents. Drugs. Drugs are chemical substances of natural or synthetic origin which are used for treatment of diseases and reducing suffering from pain. Medicines can be a drug or simply a medicine. It is a drug when it cures the disease, but it becomes a habit forming, and thus it causes addiction and has very harmful effects. A medicine is a chemical substance which also cures the disease, but it is safe to use and has negligible toxicity, and it does not cause any addiction. There are two main factors which are kept in mind while designing a medicine. First is drug target and the other is drug metabolism. Drug target is when the drugs interact with the macromolecules like carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, nucleic acids. Then these molecules, they are known as targets. Now the choice of target for a drug is important to obtain desired curative effect, that is ability to cure diseases. Then second is drug metabolism. Now, when drug is taken, then it should reach its target without undergoing any metabolism. And it should be easily excreted without causing any harm to our body. Classification of drugs. Drugs have been classified based on pharmacological effect, that is, drugs available for the treatment of a particular type of problems like antacids. Drugs are classified based on the action of a drug on a particular biochemical processes like antihistamines. Drugs are also classified based on the chemical structure, like for example sulfonamides, which have a common structural features. And lastly, the drugs are classified based on the molecular targets, whether the target is carbohydrate, proteins, or lipids. Drug target interaction. Drugs interact with macromolecules which perform a specific function in our body. Protein acts as a receptors because they are important for communication system. So in a normal binding, like enzyme is the one which has an active site on which a substrate bind by recognizing that active site, and that is a normal binding. Now the drugs, they act as a competitive inhibitors and non-competitive inhibitors. In case of competitive inhibitors, the drugs, they act on the active site of the enzyme and get attached to it where the substrate has to be attached. So such drugs are competitive inhibitors. In case of the drugs acting as a non-competitive inhibitor, they bind to a different site of the enzyme. And these sites are called as allostatic sites. So they are known as allosteric sites. Now, when this drug, it attaches to a different site, then the active site of that enzyme changes. That is, its shape changes, and thus the substrate cannot recognize it, and thus enzyme substrate is not formed. So such type of drugs are non-competitive inhibitors. Different types of drugs. First is antacids. Antacids are the drugs which remove excess of acid or raises the pH to an appropriate level in stomach. For example, milk of magnesia. Antihistamines are also called as anti-allergic drugs, and they are used for treatment of allergies like skin rashes. Example is Seldon. Then neurologically active drugs. These are of two types, tranquilizers and analgesics. The tranquilizers are used for the treatment of mental diseases, and they affect the message transfer mechanism from nerve to receptor. For example, equinol. And analgesics are the ones which relieves the pain or it decreases the pain. And they are examples like aspirin, analgin, etc. Next is antimicrobials. Disease in man and animals, they may be caused by bacteria, virus, or any other microorganisms. So any organisms that causes disease is called pathogens. They are of two types, bactericidal and bacteriostatic. So bactericidal is are the drugs which kills the microorganisms, like for example penicillin. And bacteriostatic are those drugs which inhibits the growth of the microorganisms. For example, erythromycin. Next is anti-fertility drugs, and it controls the birth of the child, and they are like steroids, which are active in ingredients of the pill, which functions as an anti-fertility agent. For example, mifepristone. Artificial sweeteners. They are the synthetic sugar substitutes, but may be derived from naturally occurring substances, including herbs or sugar itself. So they are also known as intense sweeteners because they are sweeter than regular sugar. They don't have calories. And these are food additives, and they are lifesaver for diabetic patients and is of great value to people who need to control intake of calories. So examples are like aspartame, which is unstable at cooking temperature. Therefore, it can be used as a sugar substitute for cold foods and soft drinks. Sucralose is another one, which is predicted to become of a great commercial success. It is stable at cooking temperature and it does not provide any calories. Others are like saccharine and so on. See, we have already discussed about the artificial sweeteners with examples like aspartame, saccharine, sucralose, and we also have an example like ACE, sulfate, potassium, and so on. But these artificial sweeteners, they impact our health. It results in obesity, weight gain, also cancer and tumors, which can be seen in some of the cases. It also alters the gut microbiome and adversely impact blood sugar, and negatively it impact dental health also. So instead of taking up artificial sweetener, we can also go for some natural alternatives, like for example honey, then maple syrup, apple sauce, and molasses, and banana, coconut sugar, and you also have some like you can use the sweet veggies and fresh dried fruit. Food additives. So commonly used food additives are citric acid, tartric acid, lactic acid, malic acid, fumaric acid, and also acetylens. And then we have some other like fat replacers and say microarticulated proteins, soya, and modified whey protein. And also we use preservatives as a food additive. So this preservative are the chemicals which prevents the undesirable changes of flavor, color, texture, and appetitic appeal during storage. So they delay these changes and prevent the spoilage of food due to microbial growth. And the most common preservative that is being used is sodium benzoate. Cleansing action of soap. A soap molecule has two parts. One end is a short ionic part, which is water attracting end, and this is called as hydrophilic part. There's a long hydrocarbon chain, which is water repelling end, and this forms a hydrophobic part. So when the soap is dissolved in water, then all the hydrophobic part, they come in the center, and the hydrophilic parts, they get dissolved in water and it forms a soap missile. Now when the cleansing action of the soap is that when it has to clean any dirt, oil, or say any grease present in a cloth, then all the hydrocarbon part of the soap, they get dissolved in the grease, and the hydrophilic part, it gets dissolved in water. So now it forms a soap missile in which the this soap missile gets entraps the dirt particle. And when this cloth is agitated and when it is washed, then all these dirt particles, they are pulled out from that cloth and it is taken away by water. So this is how a cleansing action of a soap takes place. Cleansing action of detergents. Detergents are cleansing agents and they work by reducing the surface tension of water, enabling it to wet things more effectively, and by emulsifying grease. So there are three types: anionic detergents, cationic detergents, and non-ionic detergents. Anionic detergents are examples like sodium lauryl sulfonate. A cationic detergent example is cetyl trimethyl ammonium chloride, and non-ionic detergent is the esters of polyethylene glycol and stearic acid. So these detergents, like the anion detergents, the hydrophobic part of the anion detergents, they get dissolved in the grease, and then they all over, when they surround it and dissolve in the grease, they form a droplet which is an emulsion of the grease. So it emulsifies grease and thus it takes away from the surface and it is removes it. Now, these detergents, when they have a branched hydrocarbon chain, then they are non-biodegradable and therefore they cause water pollution. So, to prevent the water pollution, the detergents can be used with the hydrocarbons which are unbranched. So, that will prevent the water pollution and they will become biodegradable. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe our YouTube channel.